What is the difference between a 5, 10, and 15-minute painting? Well, I'm going to start out with a 5-minute timer, and we're just going to see how this goes. So I was kind of inspired to do this because it's fun to give yourself a time limit and to kind of force yourself to work faster than normal. Personally, it is one of my favorite things to do and a really great way to just increase your speed and also to just push the boundaries of what you think you're capable of, because so often I feel like I need to focus on every little detail and really take my time and have a full plan. And for this, I don't have a plan. I'm just going. And that is really, really fun and just opens your creativity so much. So here with all of these paintings that I'm going to do, I am using a photo reference, and I'm not being super careful to be very accurate with my photo reference, but I'm using it as a guide mostly to just help me have something to work towards. And so I'm thinking less about what I'm actually, the subject of my painting, what I'm actually drawing, and focusing more on just, getting something on the page. Because 5 minutes is not a lot of time. So there isn't a lot of time to just sit and think. 5 minutes really is just enough to keep putting paint on the page as quickly as possible. I'll also say, as you can see, I am using gouache for all of these paintings. And the challenge with that is because I don't have time for the paint to dry before putting more paint on, you will see some of it bleeding into certain areas. And occasionally I will fan the paper just to help it dry faster. But that is definitely something I discovered here in this one and will continue to see. But that's okay, because again, I'm just trying to make it messy and fun and just seeing what I can accomplish in 5 minutes. So here's a few seconds left, and I wasn't able to do as much as I was hoping for, but there's the 5 minute. So yeah, as you can see, again, a lot of the bleeding color because it's still wet. I didn't have time to dry. But super fun to force myself to work fast. Okay, here is the 10-minute timer. And this one I think was my favorite out of all 3 that I do here. I think maybe just because of the subject. And you'll see I'll be painting a Arctic, icy landscape, some ice in the water, and some icy mountains. And it just turned out really cool. And again, I was creatively problem solving very quickly, and I was able to create the mountains in a really cool way. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But definitely 10 minutes is so much better than the 5. And it's so nice to have that extra time to let things dry and to think things through a little bit more. And so I think I was able to add more detail to this one as well. I will say that even just getting the paint out of the tubes and mixing my colors, that also takes a lot of time. And this exercise definitely showed me that. And so maybe why this one turned out so great was that I used a lot of the white space. And so I didn't necessarily paint everything. I left white space open. I suppose I did with the last one too, with the pathway, but maybe that is a way that you can kind of save yourself some time if you're trying to do things really, really quickly. I think one of the benefits of learning to paint or draw very quickly is just that you loosen up. Obviously, your fastest work isn't always going to be your best work, but having the confidence to just put color down on a canvas or to just make a line that's really invaluable to me. And again, why I think this is important and a good exercise to try, because sometimes you can just sit and stare at a blank page and not really know what to do, or feel uncertain about where you want to go with your piece. And when you actually like practice having a specific time limit, practice moving quickly, you just kind of you free yourself up to just make marks and to not overthink it so much. I'm definitely an overthinker, and this exercise kind of frees you of that overthinking mindset, and you just focus on creating something, and your mind you get really engrossed into what you're working on, and you're just kind of free to just create. And so I highly recommend doing this. It is so much fun. It's kind of intimidating if you're not used to having a timer. I definitely get that. But don't go into it with any expectations, really. Just go into it as a lesson for yourself, and you don't even have to share it with anybody. And just try it and see what you create. And over time, if you do this exercise a lot, you'll see that what you can create in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes becomes just more and more confident and elaborate, and your lines and colors, your choices that you have to make really quickly will feel more intuitive. So as you can see, I just love how these mountains turned out. I feel like I started the mountains and they were a little wonky, a little not what I was looking for. And then by the right hand side, like I kind of got the flow of how I wanted them to look. And now I kind of have this technique in mind for the next time I'm going to draw mountains like that or paint mountains like that. So again, just a little technique that I learned by forcing myself to just make something and not think about it, and to just go. With this 10-minute piece, I even had this whole minute free, kind of. And I was like, okay, I wasn't planning on doing anything else. So I added some kind of extra texture to the water. And so that was really nice to feel like, oh my goodness, I have all this time. And I think that added a lot as well. Of course, I love how the ice turned out with the just little cool blue light paint there as well. I just love gouache, how it can be very watercolor-esque and also be very opaque. It just depends on how you use it, and gouache is just such a fun medium. So there we go. Our 10-minute time is up, and that was just so much fun. Again, this one was my favorite, but this next one I was able to really get more into the details. So 15-minute timer, and that is starting now. And so for this one, it is a fall, like foresty kind of image that I found. And it was also a lot of rock. There's like this wall of rock, this kind of cliff. And that was a bit of a challenge for me. That's not something I normally draw either. And painting it, I think it was a little hard to get the texture right so that it actually looks like a cliff of like rock and dirt. But, it was a good attempt. And I think eventually, like, you'll see how it kind of comes together. That is maybe another challenging part about painting, is just trusting the process and letting yourself like be okay with it looking bad at first. I think every painter knows that at some point the painting just looks bad. no matter what medium you use, no matter how long you've painted, like there's always going to be a time where you're like, this looks horrible. And I think that's just the nature of painting. Like, you have to like get through the weird part before it gets better and actually turns into something like recognizable. And maybe that's a good analogy for artistic journeys in general and our creative practice of just like, there's always like this weird, messy middle part where you're just like, how is this ever gonna turn into anything? And then of course, magically it works out because you just keep going and trusting the process. And maybe that's what I need to do more of, is just keep going, keep putting marks on a page. In our analogy, just keep moving forward in your artistic journey and in your creative process, and eventually it will make sense and things will look right in your life and in your art. And so that's just a good thing to keep in mind for myself as well. And that's definitely how I felt about this particular piece part way through here. So again, this red is kind of like the rock cliff, and it just looks like a blob. At this stage, it just looks like a blob, and I wasn't feeling very confident about it. But, because it was my 15-minute piece, I had all of this time to kind of work through it. And also, it was nice to have the extra time to try to get my paint to dry so that I could add more layers onto things. That was really helpful. And I think like this exercise is also like a good warm up too, if you're warming up to something bigger, a bigger project you're working on, or a more specific piece. Just finding like a really random reference photo and just giving yourself a 5 to 15 minute time window will just loosen you up and get you ready to paint. And I also, I genuinely love working with a smaller canvas. Like breaking this page up into 3 smaller pieces was honestly really great. And I almost feel more comfortable now working in a smaller section rather than a huge canvas, because I just feel like I can fill it and not be as detailed. And I think that's just comes from doing these types of exercises a lot. As you can see, I'm still working on that rock face, doing what I can. You can let me know if you feel like it turns into anything recognizable or if it's just kind of a blob. But it was helpful to have different sections in the piece too. And by that, I mean there's the rock section, there's the grass section, there's the leaves up above. And that also helped with just keeping things moving. And while one area is drying, I can go and work on another area, which was a helpful little tip to keep my brush moving, because when you only have this much time, there isn't time to just sit and stare and think and let it dry. It's just you got to use every single minute you have to just keep your brush moving and getting paint on the page. So yeah, that was definitely helpful in this particular one. And with an extra 5 minutes, it really definitely made a difference. And because I was warmed up from the other 2 pieces, I felt more confident going into this one, and I think it looks really, really phenomenal. So yeah, I would say whatever your medium of choice, whatever kind of art you make, just try giving yourself a time limit. And even if you don't start with 5 minutes or even 15 minutes, maybe it's half an hour or 20 minutes that you give yourself to kind of complete a piece. This is obviously a very common practice with drawing models and kind of do figure drawing and that sort of thing, is giving yourself the time minutes of, they'll do a minute, 30 seconds just to get the form down. And that's a really, really invaluable practice. And I think that it can be taken to any other medium and any other, subject matter too. So using those same ideas of just like letting yourself get the essence of the subject instead of every single tiny detail of the subject. And so in the 5-minute one, it's like even, getting the essence of the colors and the layout, that in perspective and everything is really important. So yeah, there's our 15-minute piece there. And again, I'm really happy with how that turned out. I think the little grasses on the rock cliff helped. The one on the bottom is my favorite just because of how that mountain looks and how the ice looks in the water. But definitely let me know what your favorite is. This was so much fun, and I definitely, want to keep encouraging you to find new ways to make your creative practice fun and different. And please let me know if you try in this method, if you try putting a timer on things, and let me know how it goes for you. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.